Hello. So, finally, the listening module, one which is considered as the easiest, but at the same time, it demands a lot of multitasking. There are many candidates who are able to score band 9 easily in this module, but then there are those who find a lot of challenges when they are solving or dealing with this module. Yes, both, I know. So, if you have gone through the sessions in sequence, and if you have practiced whatever I have asked you to in the very beginning of this course, I'm sure by now you must have reached to a certain level of this module. In fact, in that case, this particular lesson is going to be a very quick revision for you. So, we'll be a little fast in this lesson, alright? So, what are we going to do in this lesson is, number one, first we will revise whatever we have done in the orientation session as usual. Next, we'll understand the format of this test, and at the end of this lesson, we'll understand how to practice computer-based tests for listening. This would be specifically for those who are planning to go for CBT. Cool? So, let's begin. So, as we have already seen in the orientation session, that your listening will be completed in the span of roughly 35 to 40 minutes, wherein you will have to solve total 40 questions, right? There would be 4 parts, part 1, part 2, part 3 and part 4, wherein each part will have 10 questions. That's why total 40 questions, right? Each question will carry 1 mark, and in case of PBT, you will get 10 minutes of extra time to transfer the answers to the answer sheet. However, in case of CBT, you get only 2 minutes of time to check your work. Now, what does it mean? In case of paper-based test, once all 4 audios, that means all 4 parts are over, then you get 10 minutes of time to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. That means you have an answer sheet which is separate and a question paper which is separate. So, while listening to the audios, you are going to write the answers on the question paper itself. And later, after 4 parts are over, you get 10 nice minutes of time to transfer these answers to the answer sheet. However, in computer-based test, what happens is, while you're listening to the audios, you are then and there typing the answers. That means it could be typing, it could be clicking in case of multiple choice questions. Something similar that we have seen in the reading module, right? It is possible that sometimes you have to drag and drop the options. So, whatever you're doing on the computer, that it is done then and there itself. And that is why you don't have to transfer the answers to any separate sheet or something like that. Okay. Thus, you get just 2 minutes of time to check your work. In these 2 minutes, you can maybe check if you have written all the spellings correctly. Make sure that you have marked all the answers. You have not left any question blank. If in case you have, make sure that you make an educated guess and mark that answer, even if it is simply a guess. Remember, there is no negative marking, so make sure that you answer each question. Okay, so this was a quick revision. Yes, in fact, in the orientation session itself, we also saw the band scores, how the raw scores are divided in band scores. Let's quickly have a look to that as well. So, for example, if you score 30 or 31 out of 40, then your band score would be 7. If you score, for example, 23, 24 or 25, then your band score would be 6. Yes, normally an academic candidate's requirement would be somewhere between 6 to 7. It depends on the university and or country. Whereas for a general training candidate, the requirement may vary a lot. Sometimes the requirement is just band 4, wherein you have to have minimum 11 to 12 correct answers, and sometimes the requirement is 8 as well, wherein the correct answers should be about 35 to 36, right? So for general training, the requirement may vary a lot. For academic candidate, the requirement mostly is somewhere between 6 to 7. Alright, so far so much is clear? Cool. Now, before we go to the next part of this lesson and understand the format, I would like to tell you some updates. So there have been certain changes that took place in the IELTS listening module in the year 2020. So, before January 2020, in IELTS listening, they used to call it 4 sections. But from January 2020, we now call it 4 parts, right? So, instead of saying section 1, now they say part 1. Alright, this is first change that has happened. In fact, if you have been practicing, as asked in the very beginning of this course, if you have been practicing, in certain tests you must have heard section 1, section 2, section 3 and section 4. Now remember, okay, for practicing you can listen to section like the term section, but now this term has changed to parts. Okay, now you will listen the word as part 1. In your test, they will no more call it as section, they will call it as parts. This is the first change that happened in January 2020. There is another important change that took place at the same time, and you must know about it. So, before January 2020, they used to give examples in the IELTS listening test. But now, there will not be any example solved for you in the IELTS listening test. What does it mean? So, if you have solved some tests already, there is a possibility that you must have gone through the tests which were published before January 2020, and you must have heard the examples being solved for you in the very beginning of this module. So let's do one thing. I'll explain these 2 changes to you in detail when we are solving the sample questions. For now, just understand that these changes have taken place since January 2020. Alright? Great. So now in the next part of this lesson, let's understand the format of this module. See you there.